Programs Coordinator at Beyond Baroque. It's a privilege to welcome you all this evening, which marks our first program of 2023. For some of you, welcome back to the space. If this is your first time at Beyond Baroque, welcome. We're a nonprofit literary arts organization dedicated to the possibilities of language, established here in Venice Beach in 1968, a space founded by George Jury Smith. Beyond Baroque first started out as an experimental literary magazine and later evolved into the art space that you see now. Where I'd like to acknowledge our presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to indigenous communities through colonialism and genocidal practices. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting indigenous artists, and we recognize they are still here. I invite everyone to check out our calendar of events. You can visit our website for more information on what we have coming up in the next few weeks. But just to give you a teaser, we have an exciting reading this Sunday with poets Rodrigo Toscano, Brigitte Sharma, Harmony Holiday, and Sandra Simmons. Next Saturday, on January 21st, we're hosting our Poet in Residence's new poetry collection, Divine Blue Light, for John Coltrane. He'll be in conversation with LA legend Kamal Dowd. And on January 28th, please do check out the debut of The Haircut. This is a multimedia series curated by Daniel Tiffany, featuring Aaron Coonan and Giovanni Singleton, music by Squash and Biscuit, and short film selections by an array of curators, and of course, actual haircuts in our space with Benjamin Veloz of the World Venice Barbershop. So book your appointment and please come by to the space. It'll be an experience, and I promise you won't be disappointed. We've been working really hard on this new series. Check out the full details of that program and more exciting things that we have coming up. Our website is beyondbaroque.org, and you can RSVP for any event that you wish to come to. For tonight, we're hosting three magnificent poets that will share some of their newest work, either from recently published collections or soon-to-be published works. Tonight, you'll hear from Nathan McClain, Angela Peñaredondo, and Marci Vogel. Just want to give a huge thank you to Nathan for reaching out almost 6 months ago to put this together, and thank you so much as well for sharing your work that was recently published by Four Way Books. Do you want to show the new book that you have here? Yeah, congrats, by the way. You can order copies of Nathan's book online. It'll be on Bookshop. If you go to bookshop.org, we actually receive a cut from any of the sales that are made through Bookshop. If you want to support Beyond Baroque, that'd be amazing. But first, we're actually going to start the readings with our poet Marci Vogel, and I think we'll just jump right into the readings. Marci writes across genres and between forms. She's the author of a novella in Flash, Death and Other Holidays, selected for the inaugural Miami Book Fair Prize, and At the Border of Wilshire and Nobody, winner of the inaugural Howling Bird Press Poetry Prize. She also served as commentator at Jacket 2, and she's very excited. That's all right. Producing the digital commentary series, A Poetics of the Étranger, in collaboration with fellow poet translators. The recipient of a Willis Barnstone Translation Prize, Vogel's work has received support from North Street Collective, the Napa Valley Writers Conference, and the Community of Writers. A first-generation scholar and recent fellow in the humanities, Vogel designs and teaches courses in the interventionist poetics at USC. She was born in Hollywood, not far from where the beloved Big Cat P-22 made his home, which rest in power to P-22. All cats are beautiful. So this reading goes out to him, I'm sure. But please welcome Marci Vogel.
You guys. I feel like I haven't seen people in so long. Nathan, Sora, JJ, I know. Okay, so I'm gonna read some California poems to welcome you back. And I'm wearing some of LA's favorite footwear, Uggs, which I did not buy. I thought I had a secret admirer, but it turns out that that wasn't the case. You will find out a little bit more about it. Self-portrait with atmospheric river and cougar sighting. Also called mountain lion, also called puma, hours number 22. All numbers spent, Hollywood misses you. Mascara smeared under a Janus face storm. 6 months, 7 years and a half century from where my mother delivered a child whose name they misspelled. Insisted on correction, insisted on driving through August, sweltering, drought-stricken uprising, so her youngest could arrive on time for once in her life, could write one rainy night, the odd time a package arrived, carrying artificial leopard-spotted luxury, lined with genuine Australian sheepskin. Slipping them on my feet, I imagine a worker named Iris, holiday exhausted, depositing Mercury retrograde, all turquoise and poppy, in some other box, my running shoes, in exchange for animal paws, padding royal over parquet oak, slipping out the glass door into the village green, racing down Coliseum over emptied aquifers, along cement-cradled floodwaters running wild through boulevards of tar, over gutted freeways, traffic-choked infrastructures roaring every lament into the ocean. Oh, our ocean, river in the sky, making landfall tonight, your Pacific green eyes. In the sanctuary state of our inaugural winter, day laborers are wiring home coins in record numbers. One of them abandoned an escape route in the gutter. This is not a fact, but a supposition I make while passing a note duct taped to a utility pole. Found, extension ladder, please call this number. Was it a power outage or sudden rain the repairman deluged with fixing? The note does not explain how long it takes to save for a ladder like that, or who was left holding the bottom rung while the other one climbed. If lights flickered when he reached the top, did the sky open? Did he enter? So I mentioned Village Green, which is where I live now, and it was built in the 40s as kind of a social experiment to also incorporate green space in the city. And it's just a really beautiful place to live, but because it was built in the 40s, the soundproofing just is not there. And they had to open up my ceiling recently, and I saw that the reason why you can hear the neighbor, even when they're just lightly walking, is that there's like this much space between my ceiling and their floor. So this is called Late Pandemic Breakup with Wandering Elephants. Yeah. Upstairs, my neighbor walks circles on the ceiling, broken, unmasked, on the porch next morning, asks, "How do you get through it?" I can't say exactly. We're always in it, 1 foot in front. Of another city, I heard elephants trekked 300 miles north from a year ago March. Nobody knows why at night they sleep with bodies touching, trunk to foot, no tusks. When one gave birth, the entire herd waited for months. Through steady rainfall, reports of blocked traffic, Smashed up barns, whole fields of corn consumed, drunken pachyderms stumbling through a fermented grain store. In the direction of urban streets, foraging for snacks, trailing enormous night gardens, it's said they visited the home of elders, lifted a lost calf out of the gutter, devoured a truck full of pineapple, set out as lure, and then continued on their way. Researchers mystified. Don't trust anyone who gives you a very clear response, something like, elephants are thick-skinned mammals, when the truth is the skin of an elephant is sensitive and, like mastodons and woolly mammoths, prone to extinction. They can swim, they stand on their toes, recognize themselves in a mirror, remember sources of water along migration routes. Use their trunks to greet and reassure. Their tusks are, in fact, giant teeth, and like the teeth of new humans, fall out and then grow in again without cutting. There is a practice used to break a young elephant's spirit, bound with ropes and confined in tight wooden structures, starved and beaten over and again with a sharp, long-handled steel hook. Even captive, they remain wild, not immortal like the gods of Olympus. The god who takes the form of an elephant is worshipped as one who clears obstacles and paves the route to charge forward, trumpeting the prehistoric song cure. Let's go this way, my loves. And then two more poems. This one took me, I don't know where I was for 50 years with this album. It took me a long time to catch up with it. It's called Redwood Highway with a Case of You. On repeat all the way through, blue season shift inside your palm, south to a green foot on the clutch, radio dial to K-Earth 101, question marks in the chords. A small yellow bus, taxis, summer burnished cubs, up and down carousel ranges, painted dulcimer, piano, guitar, a whole orchestra. At the height of the ravine, the emergency door swings open, and Laurel Canyon sun floods over the alarm down the center aisle, miles of possible strummed on long straps of a bag, toting every molecule over the chasm. A small boy dangles before an invisible North Star slings into motion, and we pull to the soft shoulder of the road, nestled between both sides now and an ocean of sky. That camper never sat in the back of the bus again. Don't fall out the back of the bus, Sora. Yeah, that was scary for a camp counselor. Yeah, this last one was composed on a Colibri typewriter, and Colibri means hummingbird. Self-portrait with hummingbird and beaver moon. Hydraulic brightness, I was once a child constructing kingdoms of branches and mud. Each morning, thick pelt sprouted from my skin. Each night, I'd begin again. Novembers, I streamed toward fullness, more being than industry. It's said the smallest of birds flies all night without stopping, departs at dusk with a flock of passerines, arrives the next day on warmer shores. Wintering, young birds trace the same ancestral route. Years into the future they alight, ruby-throated on the exact day in the exact spot, by what knowledge no one knows. Thank you.
Marci Vogel, everyone. Thank you so much, Marci, for that beautiful reading. Up next is Angela Peñaredondo. Angela is a queer, non binary Filipinx writer and author of Nature Felt But Never Apprehended, published by Noemi Press and upcoming in March 2023. They're also the author of All Things Loose, Thousands of Times, and the chapbook Maroon. An interdisciplinary writer, artist, and educator, their work can be found or forthcoming in the Academy of American Poets, Plaid's Apogee Journal, and elsewhere. They are a recipient of fellowships to Kundiman, Macondo, Tin House, the Community of Writers, and others. They are an assistant professor of creative writing at California State University, San Bernardino. Please welcome Angela.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. It's so good to be here. I don't think I've read in Beyond Baroque since maybe 2017 or something like that. So it's really cool to be reading here again with Marci and Nathan. So thanks to both of you for asking me to participate. And so, yeah, and yeah, it's just so cool. So it's just it's such a historical venue, you know, and everything is still what I remember except the YouTube streaming, which is awesome. So I'm gonna read work from the upcoming book, Nature Felt But Never Apprehended, and also happy Friday the 13th, right? Supposedly 13 is a lucky number, and even if it wasn't, like, who cares? Like, Friday the 13th, like, who doesn't like those, like, throwback horror films? But this is not about that. But because it's Friday the 13th, so that makes tonight, you know, kind of witchy and all of that. I'm gonna read a piece that's, I guess, on that vein, and it's the first prose poem of the book, and it's I would say it's kind of about, you know, kind of shedding, the whole ritual of shedding, and also I'll just say, like, shedding paired with the like the power of water, right? I feel like it's, if you're gonna shed all your bullshit, all whatever decolonialize, however you want to say. That water is definitely something that you could add to it, and so, right, baby. So, anyways, this is titled "Mercy Ceremony." I am slaying you in my dreams. No, slaying you for reals this time. Steel pointed aim like hawkbone at your bare collar. Your eyes tell of those once privileged limbs. That mouth that consumed everything it could because it believed it could, with even knowing the immensity. What was stripped away from me is no longer an invisible assault buried under bladed tendrils of seaweed, havoc of sea grapes. There's nothing holding me back from carving as one does when whittling wood. This butterfly blade on soft tissue to etch my name. On your skin, this name for ocean, its secret wind, this tender gouge. Jellyfish all cinematic, haunting above flaring sea anemones. Black sands of my birth, its unseasonable foam. You rope bound, covered in lava sediment. I set your weight on a raft just made for your tied up frame. Burn guava leaves above each part, stamped in volcanic ash. I hover over bandaged eyes, wrinkled genitals, moistened pods now, waiting to return to the undulating underbelly. Blow smoke into your one exposed ear so you can feel my life force one last time. Like intentional stars colliding as I push your raft off into what's destined to consume. And this next one, I'm gonna go on that same vein, and if I can find it, and this this one I'm gonna be reading was isn't a few parts, but I'll read excerpts from it. And by the way, I love that there's a baby here too. I really love it. It's so cool because it just it just changes the energy. Then it was like kind of like a really formal reading. And people, you got to bring your life to readings. You can't just be like, oh, it's a reading and then drop all that stuff. You got to bring your family members or yourself and your what have you. Okay. So, excuse me if I'm stumbling a little bit because I'm using this tablet, and believe it or not, I don't usually use it when I'm reading, but it really helps because it confuses the fuck out of you. All right, so this piece was inspired by tattoo rituals. I come from a culture like other cultures who tattoo is like is a ritual, and it was in 2000 sometime. I think it was 2018 when I went through my first tattoo ritual, and so I'll just read little pieces from that. So it's titled "Tattoo as Softening Ritual." A healer lifts a burning bowl of copal. Touch its edges to their forehead as they tell me of when they lived in the global south. Curanderas mistook them for their local indigenous women. Chestnut skin, wide nose dignified, like aspects of their shaved head. They chant behind smoke of gold resin. In the Philippines, ancestors burned native copal from Agathis domata tree, now endangered. Tree gums hold a history of forest collecting. Bone, bird, insecta, fur, leaf, pod, wing venation, media, cota, radius, crossvine, cubitus, jugal, sap, an archive. It's the first day of the new year. A tattoo doula holds my skin taut while the healer angles each poke and prod in such a way to feel each strive of the needle fully. Tradition to wail, ritual, what curiosity to witness its embodiment. Like a moment, some star releases itself from dark, unclutched from its trapeze of mess and tangle. Scarifications on their back, marble to a gliding lizard. My breasts graze scales. Lizard is eaten by another. What was charred was once hungry. A slow needle conjures storm. In a state of acute listening, an infusion of fire one layer at a time, to honor suffering. Voices speak in tongues, approaches doorway ajar, then wait beside a pillow. What do you do when all your parts bring fire? My trapped voice fires loudest, searing gale trapped inside a skull. I see a man's face, painted white cloth. When I wake, everything in me tremors, shattering in all directions. Demons have their own style of curating pain. They yank out dried, spiny branches covered in clusters of ants. Do you see where my body dissolves, then archives? Alongside moist herbs, water paired with blood ritual, like the lesser moth who breathes life in abandoned, unoccupied spaces of what was, fossilized in tree gum. This grief in trance. Narratives generated inside colonies of bones require submission. Then an asphyxiation. My breath collapses out of implosion. Falling when I get up, another unexposed world. I uncover what has not been killed, like dyed linen dripping on a line, absent of a body. I hang what has survived, produced underneath wet ground matter. Inside a pit, I inscribe mythology. And let me see. I'm gonna look at my time. Thank you. I'm gonna just, I think, read one, maybe one more. I don't know, but I want to keep within my time, so we'll see how it goes. I have my timer on. So, Marci read about green things, greener. What was that? Green village. Oh, Village Green. Village Green. So, I'm going to also read maybe some green stuff, or we'll just say environmental. We'll say environmental ecology stuff. And I'm really interested in all kinds of writings, prose, experimental poetics that are in conversation with ecology or in the environment or environmental justice. And I really respect, admire work that's also written about that. And so I'm going to read a piece here, and it's titled On Cures and Abrasions from a Responsive Environment. What was once wild chicken and pig farms, once hectares of pineapple fields, banana, coffee, cacao, rice, corn, now inedible, unlivable density. From village to village she tramples. Her land extends beyond parameters, families and homes washed by volcanic ash. It rains like this in abundance into her briny tinctures, futurity and asphalt bond in her throat. Concepts from the survivor, blast after blast, chopped, burned portions of earth, shelter and architecture of fallen switches. From her hands, herbs. She rinses in Thaal's ruined lake. If not from the violence of water, then fire. Capitalism having already found a way to turn profit on disaster. She formulates teleportation devices out of root bark. What empire identifies as poor, as docile? Does surveillance mean the same as command? Remember what it's like to be of this deserving place. She continues to scan for any of the living birds through the barrel of a sugarcane stalk. Technology against incendiary epistemes. She wipes down the fevered, makes what's bruised aromatic. And I will read one last piece also on that vein. I know, I'm trying to hurry. I wish I could. Okay, here we go. So this is, so that poem I just wanted to say was also really inspired by just a lot of the things that happen outside our borders in terms of like monsoons and hurricanes and just all the things that, but they somehow always affect, and it's not obviously random, like our, formerly colonized developing nation countries. So that was about that. And I've done disaster relief work in the past, and so I feel like it's kind of like in my bones or in my blood now to think about those things. So this last one is survivor's topography, and I just want to say thank you all for listening. Like an upward buttress, a guar skull, and her horn calls in evidence at the walls of a Catholic church. Skeleton, coral of McClain, contractual object, coffers horizontal and hanging. Ask what signage occurs as schemata for rescue. Oars that lifted a boy out of floods, It's plain a site of anti-colonial experience. In direction of what now possess you, I pray at 2.5 meters above sea level. Children, astral renegades, reverence for labor expands with untranslated vocabulary. Contour through union of mountains, confusion of phragmites, a divine missive, brown scales of flesh, water, measure for haunting, what needs not saving. Before birth rivulets, wonderment of bones splayed out like numerology across an eroded altar of geometry. Solitude and work offer a bed of moss, antique bark from this submersion. Somewhere in these militarized lands, there are rivers, there are nets. There are, before my birth, bodies you cannot see from this excavated map made and unmade. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you. All right. For our last poet of the evening is none other than Nathan McClain. Nathan is the author of Scale and Previously Owned, a recipient of fellowships from the Frost Place, Sewanee Writers Conference, and Bread Loaf Writers Conference, and a graduate of the MFA program for writers at Warren Wilson. He is a Calvin Common Fellow. His poems and prose have recently appeared or are forthcoming in Poetry Northwest, Green Mountains Review, Sokola Public Square, The Critical Flame, On the Seawall, and elsewhere. He teaches at Hampshire College and serves as poetry editor for the Massachusetts Review. Welcome, Nathan. Please welcome Nathan.
All right. Thank you so much to Yvonne for helping to coordinate putting everything together. My sincerest thanks to my former teacher as well, Karen Kevorkian, who was also very instrumental in helping putting this together. It's my first time being in Beyond Baroque, so this is really exciting for me as well. But it's been wonderful to be able to see folks who I haven't seen in a long time, and my extreme gratitude. It's also Zora's YouTube debut as well. So, so she's getting her numbers up, and of course my sincerest gratitude to both Marci and Angela for saying yes to this event, and also just being dear friends and helping me to celebrate the entrance of this new book that I'm still figuring out into the world. So, and thank you all for being here as well. I think much of the work that I'll be reading this evening is really going to kind of like teeter between the two coasts. I live in Massachusetts now, sort of like live in Springfield, but I lived in Los Angeles for a long time before moving to the East Coast. And so this first poem is actually one that takes a lot of its landscape from living in Culver City. So for some of this might be recognizable. This is entitled "The Country." How silent this neighborhood is. How vacant and silent. And thank God it is. That it isn't LA or New York, where there is very little, scratch that, nothing that you miss. What could you miss? Certainly not the noise of semi after semi dragging their big tankers along the slow lane of the 10 freeway, the BQE. Not the erratic sprinklers which, by now, have stopped hissing. Not the ugly brown grass. It's Tuesday. You'd take Watseka to walk to work. The cross outside St. Mary's would still be lit, the organist warming the organ, tapping the pedals gently with his foot. Most of the cars on the Tuesday side of the street would be gone, to clear a path for the street sweeper, to avoid the pink-slipped pen beneath your windshield wiper, fluttering the way sadness flutters to get your attention. No one would miss that. On Cardiff, you'd pass the miserable bedroom set someone set out on the lawn, or you were the bedroom set. Mattress, dresser, and nightstand, both missing drawers. Body-length mirror, half the glass smashed out. Wasn't that funny, though, how unfinished you appeared? But not here. Here, there are no toilets stacked in front of an apartment building, no potholed roads. There's no farmer's market on 3rd serving stuffed crepes you'd never tasted. It isn't raining. Remember how it was always raining the night before you left? And thank God you left. Aren't there better things one can do than sleep? See how now you have everything you need? A little homage to LA. Now that I live in this part of the country, the fireflies are far more abundant. A word I thought I'd never use again. And someone says, "How beautiful," which I could forgive. And someone says, "Look, they flash the way hazard lights sometimes flash." And I might have said, "No, don't they seem to pulse with the glow of old grievances?" But then, no one really asked me. I know, baby Zora. This is her, maybe 8th poetry reading, and I can already tell, if she doesn't go into reading, she's certainly going to be the hype section for someone. And she always wants to be in on the joke, too. This is The World is Full. I saw the wolf outside the window, in the backyard, near the park bench, nearly stripped of all its paint. Or I thought it was a wolf I saw, insomuch as I even called, "Wolf, wolf," through every room of the farmhouse. It was quite the spectacle. False alarm, one might say, as if explanation were a kind of comfort. I was not comforted. My panic startled me, the way one can be startled by something he's read in a book he's forgotten he owns, that he can't in the slightest remember buying while thumbing over the other spines, all those titles huddled together there on the shelves. Out of nowhere, we say in these cases, where did this come from? How had I missed this? The wolf seemed to come out of nowhere. Or maybe from a book I remember read to me as a child, some cautionary tale, a window capable of being looked in, seen through, if you were brave. It was not a wolf outside the window. It was a coyote, but with a wolf's bulk, its metallic flash of fur, its appetite. I admit, I was afraid. Not for myself, but for the chickens. I looked out the window because the chickens clucked so madly, like children at a school running amok. The hens flapped at the glass. The chicks instinctively slipped out of sight into the taller, wet grass. No, it was not a wolf. Of course, I knew the difference. I'd been a boy, been small enough to be clenched in a wolf's jaw, though I never was. I was safe. I wanted to save them, but the commercial in the background insisted the window for savings was closing fast, then faded to black, as they do when they're done. The wolf scattered them, the way feathers can be scattered, torn from the body, or the way children are drilled even in grade school to scatter. Shh. We prepared for this now. I called wolf. I clapped at the glass, which I've been told makes a difference, and I wanted things to be different. To the chickens, it must have looked as if I took delight in their predicament, and who would tell them otherwise? The world is full of suffering, it's true. Why not delight in that it's yours, not mine, for once? The coyote slunk away, or the wolf did, something dead, I thought, between its teeth. I was afraid, though I went out to look for what was missing, what was lost to the woods. 10 chickens, 2 chicks. I counted them, like I tally all loss, scattered the way one might scatter bird seed in the yard, or how one might scatter a child's ashes to the ocean's indifference. I'd been a boy, lost among the woods as in some fable. Or maybe not lost, just the shade of tree bark. Not a wolf, though to the chickens the distinction hardly matters. Here, chickie, chickie. No one had bothered to name them. To name them, we believed, would make them harder to kill and eat. But how wrong we were. I believed I could save them, or that saving them meant I loved them, that my love was good for something. Thank you. This is another sort of poem that got its start when I was living in California. This is At the Park, a Boy's Birthday Party. No surprises here, really. Not the plastic white cutlery or the fancy glass bowl. Cubes of pineapple and Bosque pear floating in punch, naturally red, that no one, thank the Lord, has thought yet to spike. Each boy, blindfolded, spun in place and shoved down the piñata's path with a bat he can barely lift, the piñata, star-shaped, tasseled pink at its ends, seems accurate. At this age, their limbs inarticulate as the smoke of catfish or pork ribs that hiss on the park grill. They hardly notice the sun's descent. It's getting late, I think, to say, as someone's father knots the blindfold over my eyes, fits the bat into my hands. In my ear, the boys shriek, and there, the star, snagged in the oak of my mind, the rope swaying almost gently. How, even dizzied, do I step towards it? Just a couple more poems for you this evening. This is a poem from living in Massachusetts, and I used to give a lot of the early poems that I was reading as an undergrad and in grad school. I'd give poets a bunch of shit if they were just doing a bunch of walking around in their poems, because I was just like, who has time to just walk around? Who's got that kind of freedom of space? But as I have read through this book time and again, there's a lot of walking around in here. So I'm just like, am I one of those poets now? This is living in the Northeast is what's done that to me. So I take it back, walking poets. This is entitled What You Call It. Not my usual route to the market, past the railroad tracks, then past Grace Episcopal Church, its courtyard empty. No men clasping hands as though agreeing finally to the difficult terms of some treaty. So I would not have known it was a peach tree unless the person who planted it or someone on the street told me. Which is not to say its fruit didn't look peach-like. It did. Rather, I didn't read it as such. Didn't know what I was seeing, really. From where I stood, the fruit perfect and young and heavy, at least heavy enough to bow the branches, though hardly ready yet to eat. Ripe, one might say, which, true, is more precise, precision a thing of value. Not that the fruit cares what you call it, or stands for anything other than what time can make of some small human intervention, is no piece of literature. The peach was simply a peach, and there for the taking, which is often said of an object that has gone unwatched for too long, susceptible to trespass, which happens first in the mind, and happened first because of fruit, or so says the good book, if you believe in such things. Knowledge, which a poet once called historical, too a trespassing of sorts, the proof of which perhaps best shown in how one might punish a slave who had been taught to read the word beauty or toil or rest secretly and by firelight. There are things nearly impossible to forget, having so trespassed, having badly needed to see up close this tree, fixed in place, its fruit dangling, there, within reach, though not the same as being offered. Tenderness, I have learned, is only one test of whether some fruit has fully ripened. You press the flesh right here. But for me, that would mean crossing half the yard, the way a paper boat might be pushed by wind across a pond. And I'm just going to close with the final poem in the book. Thank you very much. It's one that's appropriate. Our family has been on this sort of like epic road trip over the course of the last few weeks. One of the things that my wife and I love to do whenever we hit a new city or a new state is to try to find like the best diner. We love diners, love diner food as often as we can hit one. And our daughter, certainly Zora, is beginning to understand the power of a good scrambled egg. So to close this evening, I'm going to read a poem from a rest stop diner, which has an epigraph from Robert Graves that reads, there is one story and one story only. And once again, my sincerest thanks to Yvonne, to Marci, to Angela, to Zora, and my wife JJ, and to all of you for being here. And certainly great to see some folks I haven't seen in so long. Poem from a rest stop diner, which ends up being the same diner and the same men licking the same finger before turning the page of yesterday's paper, always reading yesterday's paper because it costs so little to look back, to have your mug refilled with black coffee cooled under a ceiling fan's spin. Nothing is unexpected, and it's absolutely perfect, down to the waitress wearing her name permanently marked on a plastic heart she's pinned over her heart, her finger slipped in the ceramic ring of the mug, the bill like a whisper tucked beneath your plate, the bell at the host stand, the little girl smacking it, though not to get anyone's attention, just to hear it sing, the same song, the only song it knows. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Nathan. round of applause for all our poets this tonight. Thank you so much. Awesome. Just before we go, check out our bookstore. We have a few books of Marci's. Please be on the lookout for the book launch of Angela Peñaredondo. Might be hosting it virtually and later in March. So please be on the lookout for that, and hope you will be enjoying your night. And thank you again so much for coming. Please do say hi to us. I also want to thank our team for putting on this event with Eric Alberg in the booth. Thank you so much to Quentin and Jimmy at the bookstore. Please say hi to us. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.